Anna Kasparian is a psychological marker, a marker of what is to come. The average person does not put up with bullshit on the extremes and always gravitates towards the center. And all of you heathens and all of you heretics and all of you, well, Anna Kasparian, she's a leftist and there's nothing redeemable about her. It's like, you blind fool. I knew from the day she made her first video about Jordan Peterson 4 years ago that she was on the right track.
So here are my nuanced thoughts on Peterson, which will definitely upset some of my viewers along with his, but I ask you to remain open-minded as you watch this. We should feel comfortable talking about and debating ideas that don't mesh with our own.
This is my philosophy. If you see a single flash of common sense or decency or humanity in someone, that's an indication that they are redeemable and able to be brought to the common sense middle on most issues. And by keeping that open mind, you actually convert them and you bring them over and you destroy your enemies by making them your friends. And it's a glorious, Daryl Davis-esque, enlightened centrist, beautiful thing. And let's listen to Anna Kasparian talk about it.
I've been making jokes about you might end up at the Daily Wire. That's not true?
No. It's funny because, I'm going through something very real and very sincere, and it's uncomfortable, and it has not been an enjoyable process for me. It's been difficult. And so the internet being what it is, all sorts of people from all sorts of political ideologies have theories on like what's actually happening with me, right? And the main accusation, both from the left and the right, is that I'm grifting, which is hilarious because literally nothing has changed about my work life. I'm in the same place. I have the same audience. The audience doesn't like some of what I have to say or some of the new conclusions I've come to. And so I wanted to kind of set the record straight about what I have personally experienced. I don't know what my political labels are at this point, right? Because I feel like I don't really fit anywhere. And
I know what her political label is. It's centrist, where all the smart people are. This is what I'm talking about. The political landscape is dissolving in front of us. And where there is chaos, there is opportunity. I swear to God, if you just got everyone from Joe Rogan to Russell Brand to Tucker Carlson to Anna Kasparian to Destiny to Blair White to all the Bernie bros and Trump supporters, it's like you can do it if you focus on the right issues and if you bring the right level of charisma and authenticity and honesty and correct application of archetypal narrative and imagery. We could be in such a glorious situation politically. We could be moving forward and striving into the future as a society. But we don't, because we let freaks, we let extreme nerds who live in their parents' basements literally dictate the terms of the political debate. And Anna Kasparian, like most people, is sick of it.
I want to say that out of any point in my adult life, this is probably the point where I'm the most malleable and open to new information because of what I've experienced over the last few years. And I can get into details about that in just a moment. But that was the reason why I told Adam that, no, this isn't like a Daily Wire thing. I have no interest in working at the Daily Wire. I have no interest in...
She's going to be at the Daily Wire. Calling it now, if the Daily Wire has any hope of not becoming just a disgusting Fox News... Well, although Fox News is very profitable, so maybe they're just doing that. They should hire Anna Kasparian. Bring on Anna and Jordan Peterson to fight back against the religious dogmatists, because, oh my God, Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles could use some evolution in their lives.
What do you think's causing sort of this shift in the left and in media? Or, I mean, first of all, I'm assuming you think there is a shift that's happening in the left and in media.
It's funny because, a lot of them LARP is like anti-capitalist, like revolutionaries or whatever.
LARP, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it's true. And so it's really funny because what they do is they are positioning themselves to attract a very specific niche in audiences, right? So they're going for the purists, the people who like to think of themselves as like far left, communist, socialist, whatever.
The ideologues, the fundamentalists.
You can see it in the various streams. Like they'll talk about things through the lens of we're the most pure, like we're the most sincere in what we're saying, whatever.
The real left, yeah.
Exactly, we're the real left. So when they do that, what ends up happening is they become more and more extreme in what they are saying, right? In what they claim to believe.
Right. And you have to be the fundamentalist. If you take the Bible, like this is the fundamentalists always have the edge when you're looking at the literal texts, right? Well, if the Bible is the word of God, then you should be taking everything seriously as possible. And so there's always a pull towards fundamentalism and orthodoxy and dogmatism. That's all the same thing, whether it's political or religious.
And I think I'm probably self-sabotaging right now, career-wise. But I don't know. The problem is once you see certain things,
the truth is profitable.
You can't unsee them.
Right.
And I can't just lie. I can't do it with a straight face. It's just not who I am.
What do you mean? Are you talking self-sabotaging by talking to us or talking about these things in general? Because I Like it's an interesting dynamic that we have here on the internet, because I do agree with you, and we've talked about this on the show many times. Like the incendiary voices in the political space are the ones that get attention, blow their channels up, get views, become rich, basically.
Yeah.
Conflict entrepreneurs is what I always call them.
Yeah, totally.
I want to say two things. First of all, and I don't know your take on Jordan Peterson, but it is like the first rule is tell the truth. And I feel like coming to a place in your life where you're like, I feel like I'm honestly telling the truth now, I can see where that would make me feel completely better. I'm one of these people who just hates thinking I'm being dishonest, or if I'm in a position where I'm forced to be dishonest for a job or something like that, I just, it's horrifying for me. So,
good guy, Adam.
I do think it is kind of politically expedient for a lot of people to categorize far-right, racist, Nazi pieces of shit who, none of us are in favor of, for moderate Republicans who just want some, they have a different spin on some sort of policy prescription, which my thinking of the world is, you've got the conservatives on the right who are kind of playing defense for society, and you have liberals and progressives on the right who are or on the left who are kind of playing offense for society. They're the ones that are pitching all of these crazy policies for making society better. And conservatives are kind of saying, well, we're kind of good where we are now. Should we take the risk of doing this? And you really need, what sports team that doesn't have a good offense and a good defense is going to be a winning team? So a lot of the political polarization I see as part of the problem.
2006 Chicago Bears got to the Super Bowl because of their defense alone. Rex Grossman was the quarterback, but I won't bring that up. I don't know if it was that 2006, 2008. Who knows?
Here. And one of the nice things about you starting to realize, there are people on the right that aren't just crazy, insane racists, and maybe you can communicate their arguments clearly to your audience.
And there are people on the left who are not just blind ideologues who want to do weird shit to vulnerable people.
Yeah, I think there are, look, I disagree with many of the policy ideas they have or the perspectives they espouse, but there are good faith, thoughtful, conservative Republicans out there. Like, I think Glenn Loury is a good example. Again, I might not agree with everything he has to say, but he's a thoughtful person, and he is not in any way justifying, white supremacy or some of the hyperbolic things that he might get accused of by those on the left. And again, it's really about understanding in good faith the other side and being able to, I guess, debate the issues, as opposed to what I see happening right now is I want the left to engage in the argument, as opposed to what I see happening, which is them engaging in ad hominem in a lot of cases, character assassination, or
religious,
about the
dogmatic
character based on their preconceived notions behavior, and based on what they heard other streamers say about the individual. It's like, okay, just take a step back for a second. You need to address the point that this person is making. And if you're not addressing the point that this person is making, and instead you're turning around and throwing all sorts of accusations at them to make them seem like they're immoral or they're bad people, then that tells me that you don't really have an answer to what they're saying, And I see that happening more when it comes to culture war related issues, as opposed to economic issues. And that's the other thing. I think that the left has completely, and they'll deny this, but just go to Twitter right now. They've abandoned economic policies and instead hyper-focus on incredibly divisive, identity.
Getting drag queens to read to children? That did seem weird. It's funny when conservatives, why do conservatives care so much about drag queens reading to children? It's like, it's the conservatives who care about that shit? How about the people bringing the drag queens into the freaking schools? But exactly to Anna's point, look how we're not talking about economics. Look how we're not talking about how no one is owning property and the middle class is getting squeezed. And that will facilitate the elite, powerful people, whether they're capitalists or whether they're socialists. The World Economic Forum will do what they want to while we sit here and bicker.
Well, it's hilarious because, okay, let's put healthcare aside for a second, because here's the other thing. The far left will push ideas that are not popular with the general public, right? Yes. So I think protecting, marginalized communities, protecting the transgender community is important. However, when you move out of or move far away from making sure that they are not denied housing, making sure that they're not denied healthcare, when you move into these more fringe areas of there was a story out of the UK this week, blows my mind. There was an LGBTQ group in the UK who suggested that instead of referring to vaginas as vaginas because it might be offensive to transgender men, one of the potential replacements or substitutes could be bonus hole.
Oh no. Bonus hole?
Yeah, bonus hole. And listen, people don't like this stuff. Okay, they might not be on Twitter talking about how much they dislike this stuff, but on average, every normie woman I've talked to is like, I can't stand this stuff, right? So what Jake and I recently talked about it. I think we talked about it in the context of.
It's what my dad says. Listen, no one's going to tell you you're stupid to your face. They'll just think it to themselves when you're not there. Exactly the same stuff here. If you're one of those people like really strongly advocating for children to be exposed to naked adults, you will pay for that in your social life and your real life. That's the advantage of truth, moral truth. When you live by moral truth, your life flourishes as opposed to turning everyone around you against you because you are believing in something insane.
If you do this, if you start pushing the mainstream Democratic Party to run their campaigns on these like fringe issues, they might not get reelected, or they might not get elected at all if they're running against a Republican in a district. And the response, and it's the same response we got when we made the same point about the stupid prison abolition movement, is we don't care. We don't care. This is the right thing to do. We don't care. And it's like, oh, okay. But then you complain about what Republicans are doing in various red states. So do you want more Republicans to get elected? And do you want more of these, look, I think that some of these laws that have been passed in various red states, for instance, banning gender affirming care for adults, between the ages of 18 to 25. I think that's wrong. I think adults should be able to make a decision about their own bodies.
Agreed.
I do think that there is a worthwhile debate when it comes to, hormone blockers and cross-sex hormones for children. And we should have that debate in good faith.
I need to make a new enlightened centrist tier list. Anna's going straight to S tier along with Slavoj Žižek because the left is just rejoining us in the center. It did seem for a while like the right was going to be the main brute force of the centrist movement, which it sort of is as of right now, but they're getting weird with all the religious dogma stuff. So we need to adapt back into our red phase. Or blue phase, I guess. You know how like there's like Kane from League of Legends switches in different phases and shit? We need to constantly be riding that balance. Let's go a little bit more left. Let's get a little bit groovy. Let's get a bit weird. Let's embrace the left-wing chaos personality archetype. I need to get a real life.
And so since so many people have these only specialized friendships around politics, on people they meet online, that's got to make it like almost impossible for people to change their mind or to buck some kind of narrative, because everyone that they know, their entire social structure, their entire support group is based around a political narrative, around a political ideology.
100%.
Politics taking the place of religion. Politics is a religion psychologically. To view them differently is foolish. This is why all the cringe atheists who are like, I don't like Jordan Peterson because he redefines religion. It's like, okay, well, he's redefining it in a way that makes it more useful to understand how it actually operates in people psychologically. And that includes and political narratives and religious narratives are one and the same in their psychological effect. Well, the political one does have a supernatural thing in it. It's like, dude, Martin Luther King is not a historical figure. He's a mythological figure that we use to represent a particular belief system. Same with George Washington. Same with whoever, Ronald Reagan. So politics is a religion. And to think otherwise is a mistake.
Look, this is hyperbolic talk, so I want to make sure I mention that before I say it. But
shoot.
I've told Jank on multiple occasions, I'm like, I feel like I just woke up and got out of a cult, right? Because it is a little bit cult.
It's a religion.
I don't think it's literally a cult, but I think what happens is exactly
no, it's
the
literally
dynamics
a cult.
that you just described is exactly right. And, people are scared. Like we, as humans, we thrive in our social groups, and we need to have that social group in order. Like, it's just how we evolved. And so I get it. I understand the mentality behind it, but there were certain things going on in my personal life that I'm very grateful for, because it didn't keep me grounded enough, but at least kept me grounded to the point where I had a way of seeing the other side to some extent. So I'll tell you a few examples. Like my husband's Cuban. He is not like a conservative Cuban guy. In fact, he was pretty apolitical when we met. He's become more political.
Pretty sure a moderate Cuban is a conservative Cuban, but what do I know? I'm white.
Politicized as we've been together, but nonetheless, his family, hardcore Republicans. Like they just are, And at first, like in 2016, when we got married, I remember I would get into like these super uncomfortable fights and debates with them, and I was just like, I had in my mind like all of these made up ideas of what they believed. And finally, I just decided, look, I love my husband. I don't want to like put him in an awkward position of like having his wife constantly in conflicts with his family. So let me just calm down and just try to understand where they're coming from. And then what I started to do was, instead of like challenging them, whenever they would talk about something like healthcare, for instance. So they think everything Democrats do is like
Socialism.
by definition. Like
Pure
they're,
evil.
they're all
Yeah.
socialists, they're all communists, they're all,
Right.
And I look, considering the trauma they experienced, I get where they're coming from in that regard. But I wanted to kind of like convince them that's not the case. So instead of being combative, when we were talking about healthcare, for instance, it was hilarious because one of his family members accidentally admitted that when she was pregnant and she had to go on Medicaid, that it was the best healthcare she's ever had, right?
Oh no.
And like, look, instead of going like, aha, I gotcha, right? Like, antagonizing her for it.
Right.
I was like, you know what? You make a really good point. Like, free at the point of service, and I'm just trying to get her to absorb and really fully understand what she just said, right? And so I think there's a way to talk to people. I think there's a way to find common ground. There was this actress, I always forget her name, but she's beautiful. She's in that show, that HBO show about rich people vacationing. White Lotus, the first season of White Lotus. There's this one actress who had posted photos of her mother's birthday on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And in that photo, or in the series of photos she posted, you could see family members in the back wearing like MAGA hats. And the amount of backlash this actress received was intense.
Wow.
And they were mad at her for refusing to condemn and cut off her family members.
Cult.
And I was like, no,
Cult.
you don't do that. Like, how do you think you're going to win politically by doing that?
Right.
By like segregating people based on their political ideology.
Yeah.
The way that we come to conclusions or agreements or policies that could actually work to improve people's lives is by engaging in these conversations in good faith. And yes, obviously, considering the fact that not everyone agrees, you do have to compromise on certain things. But improving things, maybe it's not going to be exactly what you want, but improving things is still improving things. And the idea that you should just cut anyone off if they don't agree with you 100% runs counter to building the broad coalitions necessary to accomplish some of these policies.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I could not have said it better myself. That's obvious because I'm not a intelligent person. But I am trying to strive towards a glorious center, apparently like Adam and Anna and Sitch as well. Hopefully we get there, everyone. In the meantime, good luck and Godspeed.